Hello and welcome to Frostpunk. Frostpunk is a city builder set during the steampunk era of the late 1800s. In their world, a great freeze has come over the earth and brought chaos with it. The story of Frostpunk, as we will soon learn, is of groups of intrepid explorers and hardy refugees who escaped to the Arctic to establish new colonies away from the chaos of the rest of the world. Frostpunk first released a couple of years ago, and in the subsequent time has had several expansions revealing more stories in the Frostland. This series will be the original story, A New Home, and subsequent series will cover the other scenarios. Due to time constraints, this series will be recorded in batches ahead of time. Please, as always, comment on the videos and discuss in my Discord server, the link for which can be found in the description below. But know that your suggestions will likely not be able to be applied to this series. However, if they are applicable to the game as a whole, I will endeavor to include them in a later series. So, as I mentioned, A New Home is the first scenario. And we are going to take all the default settings. So, I did not even select a scenario. We're starting the game as we would in the original release about 2.5 years ago.
We roam the still, cold world. No horizon in sight. The rulers of old, stripped of pride and glory. It feels as yesterday we were turning the wheels of progress. Until the frost stopped it all. Suddenly, without a warning. When tides had changed, they changed for all of us, no matter wealth or class. We've lost our world to snow. And with it, our last traces of humanity. We bid farewell to plenty, and for those who remained came the time to adapt. We decided to leave our homes and head north. We roamed for weeks, maybe months, leaving behind all the things we once believed had made us. It was hope that pushed us forward. Slowly, step by step. We knew the cost of our journey, and we paid the price 100 times. Finally, the time has come to build the last city on Earth.
A New Home. We fled from London and crossed the sea to reach the frozen north. On the way, our convoy was hit by a blizzard and scattered. A handful of us managed to reach the site of this generator, only to find it frozen solid and abandoned. Why is no one here? Did any of our people survive the blizzard? Are there any others out there? Whatever we do, we should expect the worst now that the world has, as we know it, has crumbled. We have to survive. Fight the cold. We need to get the generator working. It provides heat and power to the other buildings. Without it, we'll freeze to death. Stockpile some coal and start the generator. First thing you do when you start Frostpunk is pause. Take assessment of the game area here. And as you can see, this game is built in the round. Very unique building design style. I don't know that I've ever really seen any games built in the round before, but the grid is circular around the generator here in the center. Scattered around the generator here are piles of wood crates. I think there's 3 or 4 of those. There are piles of steel wreckage. There are 3 of those. And there are 5 piles of coal. All of these can be collected by our workforce, which is shown down here. We have 50 workers, 15 engineers, and 15 children. All of these can be gathered by our workforce and by hand, or through means that we'll explore in a little bit. On top of that, we have additionally over here some coal mines and a steel metal source that is infinite. The coal mines are also infinite, but we have to research some technology. You can also see scattered around the edges of the map here are some dead trees. We can explore that area and pick up those trees with some more technology as well. And there's also a coal mine available down here. So the way that I sort of like to lay this game out, or to start this game up, is I like to plan out a little bit of my base city, and then work my way into it. So the first thing that I do before I do anything else is I go into the Book of Laws and sign a law. You start the game with the adaptation tree, and this is in order to help us find ways to battle hunger, sickness, and apathy. Here in adaptation we have 6 laws that we can sign. Some of the laws have 2 choices, 2 things you can do. So as far as food goes, we can either sign a law called soup, or we can that stretches the recipe, or stretches the raw food out a little bit into a more expanded recipe, or food additives, which also stretches it out, but is just a different way to stretch your food out into more rations. So soup on one hand causes hope to fall slightly, discontent to rise slightly, and causes discontent when they eat soup, whereas food additives will also cause hope to fall and discontent to rise, but will also cause people to fall ill when they eat sawdust meals. So there are choices, and 4 of them, and then 2 of them are static. The first one that I always sign is emergency shift. Not because I ever use it, but because I want what comes next. But emergency shift is sometimes we have to concentrate on the task at hand at the cost of everything else, or die. So if we use emergency shift, it'll raise discontent, and discontent will rise slightly just by signing this law. But we can force our workers to work in any facility for 24 hours straight. Like I said, we're never going to use this throughout this game, this playthrough, rather. But we want what comes next, so I always sign this law. And we're still paused, which is fine. Our crier will announce that a new law has been signed. Just to address some more of the UI here, this is telling us we have 80 homeless people. It's red, which means it's a problem. It will be a problem eventually. We have our discontent meter here and our hope meter here. Discontent is bad, hope is good. It also shows you modifiers that affect those stats. And the controversial law we just signed is a temporary modifier that increases discontent. So we need to counteract that somehow, and we will in time. So let's start planning out our city. And the way that I like to plan out the city is to take a house and come here right next to the storage area, and you can see that the house occupies 2 tiles deep by 3 tiles wide, and you can see a bold green line every house width all the way around the generator. And it bolds, or it becomes more visible as you get closer to it. What I want to do is put a house right here, and this is just to serve as a marker, because what I want to actually do is build a street, and that street's going to go alongside the edge of that house, and then we're going to cancel that build of that house. All this serves as a marker for the amount of space that houses will need. And then I want to go here into tech instead, and I want to build a workshop. Workshops are where your citizens will do the research into the new technologies or enhancement technologies that you need for your town. And I'll show those as soon as the workshop is done building. But I built it so that the corner of the workshop... Show that again. I can't show that again. I built it so the corner of the workshop is right there where I ended the street, matched up with the corner of that house. So what this does is this gives me an alignment to this street, which we're going to extend in a little while here. But it also gives me a spacing here so that I can put in houses and other 2-tile buildings in this first ring. And you'll see as we continue with the game that the game that we keep expanding in rings. So the next thing I'd like to do is put as many workers as possible on this this wood pile, this wood crate pile. As many workers as possible on this steel pile. As many workers as possible on this coal pile, and then the remaining available 5 workers on this wood crate pile. And then the 15 engineers are going to build this stretch of road as well as this this workshop. And now it's time to unpause. So the quest that we started the game with to stockpile some coal and turn the generator on comes in. Comments from our various citizens will pop up here over time, and usually it's commentary on whatever you as the player just did, like signing the 24-hour emergency shift law, but we don't need to worry about their comments necessarily. Sometimes they can be revealing, but most of the time they're kind of just a little bit extra in the way of the story. So let's let this continue and let our engineers build up this stuff here, and let our workers head out and get to work in the various piles that we set them to work in. And then as these engineers get done building the road and the workshop, then we can continue with the building of the town. Give them a little bit more speed here. There. And take the speed back down. As soon as something is done, a lot of times you'll see me pause the game, because especially here in the beginning, I have some thresholds that I'm trying to meet, and I need to meet those by jumping right in and doing things. The first thing I always research is the beacon, because the beacon lets us start allows us to send scouts to search the wilderness for goods and survivors and bring them to our city. Lookouts will also spot incoming groups of people. We started out with 80 people. There are a lot of people that are out there in the world, spoiler alert, and we need to go in and help them come to our city to help us advance. And so we assigned our first 5 engineers to this workshop, or 5 of our first engineers to the workshop, and then the remaining engineers will actually continue building some roads for us as we continue gathering wood. So let's unpause the game, and let's continue building this road out to here, I believe. And the engineers will continue building that street while the workers are collecting our goods. We could assign some of the engineers here as well, but I want them to focus on getting the street built first. So we're going to build that street. Let's increase the speed just a little bit while that research happens. You can see the research is happening down here. This is also a way to get into the tech tree where we're doing the research. You can see the progress as it continues down here. And if you didn't notice, I have not turned the generator on yet. We don't need it yet. It's only minus 20 degrees Celsius, which is as warm as it's ever going to get. Just so you know, if you haven't seen this game played before, that's as warm as it's going to get. People from our convoy, family torn apart. Sir, a woman came forward after we built the workshop. She said that her husband and daughter didn't reach the city with the main group, but she's sure they're still out there. She wants to join the first scout team we'll send out. She urges you to hurry. We'll do what we can. Alright, and the road is just about done. The road is done. So let's dump these 10 engineers into harvesting crates for wood. And the meantime, we need to actually pause again because there's a threshold on the amount of steel we need to start the game with. And be at this point. And that's the amount of steel we need to build the beacon, and that is 35. So now that we have 35 steel, I want to take the 15 workers off of steel and send them to work on more wood instead. Wood is essential at this phase of the game, this early stage, so we need to assign as many workers as reasonable to harvesting wood. And then I've sped the game up a little bit. And our next threshold is making sure that we get to... Pause the game again. Making sure that we get the beacon researched before we get to 1800. If we get to 1800, then that becomes a problem because research stops at 1800. All buildings, when we start the game, work from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., so it's a 10-hour shift. And so now that we've done the beacon research, we can do a couple of things. First off, we can start the next research, which I always do as sawmill. Sawmills turn frozen trees into usable material, producing up to 80 wood per standard workday. Let's start that research, then let's build the beacon. As you can see, it takes 20 wood and 35 steel, which we do have barely. I put the beacon way out here on the edge of the map, not because it needs to be at the edge of the map, but because it doesn't need to be heated, and so it can stay out here at the far reaches of the world, and I don't have to worry about it at all. So we'll let that beacon start getting built, and we will watch as the game progresses here a little bit. So we can clear that alert, and let's take the speed up a little bit. Here at 1800, now it's free time, so everyone working will stop. As you can see, research is stopped. Everyone is leaving these work piles here and heading back toward the generator, which is their only home at this point. Housing problem. No roof over our heads. Captain, people are understandably concerned about the lack of shelter. They're falling ill from sleeping outside in this terrible cold. We'd better do something about it. So, many times throughout this game, we'll be provided with a list of choices raised by a concern that pops up in a bubble on the game screen. And this is kind of more immediate of an issue that needs to be dealt with rather than the little comments that pop up here at the bottom throughout the course of the game. So we're given 3 options here. Sometimes we're not given 3, sometimes we can't choose one or more of the 3. But we have the choice to provide some shelter, which means within 2 days we'll have to provide shelter for 40 people, which is half of our population. We have 80. If you remember, you can't really see it, but if you remember. Or I'll provide shelter for everyone, which means we have 2 days to provide shelter for 80 people, or I won't address this now, which will cause discontent to rise slightly. So if you ignore these requests, it causes discontent to rise, and always the last option is ignore. This one is challenging, this one is more challenging, and then this one is easy, but it causes problems. We're actually going to be able, through the sort of plan that I have for this series, to provide shelter for everyone, so I'm going to choose that option. And let's unpause. And notice I still haven't turned the generator on yet. And it's going to yell at us about it, I think, pretty soon. A word of advice. The wisdom of the crowd. Captain, when facing demands, remember this. People usually look for the quickest solution, not the best one. You don't have to agree to everything they ask for. If you fix the problem your way, it's fine. I'll bear that in mind. Thank you. So that's kind of what I was talking about with the third option. Sometimes you just have to say, no thanks. I don't want to deal with this right now. I'll deal with it on my own time, in my own way. And I'm not going to listen to the suggestions that the game is offering, that the community is offering. Okay, so the beacon is now being built. It took a little bit for some people to get out there. In the meantime, let's take these workers off of this. And we have a alert. The generator. The heating is off. The generator's off. People are afraid they'll freeze to death in their sleep if you don't at least turn it on for the night. Of course. So the plan is you don't actually have a problem as long as the generator runs in these first 3 days. As long as the generator runs between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. So we're going to do that. We're going to turn the generator on about 1:30 and run it until 5. Okay, beacon is done. Beacon built. We're no longer lost and blind. From now on, our people will be able to survey the icy barrens that surround us. Frostland. Okay, and the balloon goes up. And now we have 2 places. We have the Lost Expedition and the crash site that we can visit with scouts. So let's go back into the city and pause the game again. And I've took those 5 workers off because we need to come here to the beacon and create a scout party. And for the scout party, we need 40 wood and 5 workers. Let's create that scout team. And so the scout team is here at our city. And you can see over here also that they're waiting. And we want to go to the Lost Expedition first. So I click on the Lost Expedition. Numerous tents. We can see people moving about. They must be the lost members of our expedition. And I'll click the go arrow. And so it's going to take them just about 11 hours to get there. And then once they get there, we will jump back and join them. Let's unpause and let's speed the game up. Let's go actually super fast for a little while here. And oh, people from our convoy, ready to search. People cheer as the giant observation balloon soars above the city. This is a real feat. Everyone feels proud of the work they've done to make it happen. Volunteers have lined up, eager to go looking for our lost people in Frostland. The woman who came forward earlier is among them. We needed a win. Right, so we've already started the process. I kind of jumped the gun a little bit there, but it gave me an extra hour or so of trying to meet the aforementioned threshold that I wanted to try and meet. Oh, let's speed the game up again. And I'm watching the time and not reading this because I don't want to miss it, because it causes problems if you miss it. So I'm going to pause for a moment. So the generator controls are here. As you click on the generator right now is shut down. You can see that by this little toggle being toggled up. And it, of course, consumes no coal, but of course it heats nothing. And then we have steam level 1, which is the base level, the level we can start with. And we need 6 coal to turn the generator on to begin with, and then we consume 100% of the coal, the generator's coal consumption, and it gives us +1 temperature and heat in all heat zones. The generator's consumption is 6 per hour, as you can see here, and there is an overdrive setting, but we don't want it. And there is a range setting that we will research later, and then we can also turn on the temperature overlay. You can do it here, or you can do it by clicking this button here, and that's how we're actually going to do it. Here, I'm going to unpause the game, and I'm going to click on that, and you can see that while the generator is very brightly red, and so is the workshop, the area around the generator is barely yellow, and then there's basically nothing. It's all cold. And you can see kind of a key here of the temperatures, but actually this coldness is more like neutral rather than bad. It is more of an indicator of we don't have anything here, as opposed to an indicator of this is a problem. Although I guess it's chilly as well. It's kind of a generic on top of being the indicator for chilly. But anyway, let's get back out of there and fire the game back up again, or unpause the game, and you can see the heat is rising in the generator. And once this bubble gets completely filled, then we actually do have a full yellow circle exactly 2 blocks away. As you can see, you can't really see it at the same time though, but as you can see here, it's right there where the edge of the workshop is, which is exactly 2 blocks. That's heat zone 1. That's that first ring, and that's the ring that we're going to build our initial housing and some other things in. The law that we signed, the emergency shift, its cooldown, which was 18 hours, has passed. It passed a little bit ago, actually, and I didn't catch it right away, but it's okay. So we're going to sign what's next, which is what I was really aiming for, which is extended shift. Building a city in this frozen hell requires sacrifice. People will get more done if they work longer shifts. After introducing this law, another one can be passed after 18 hours. We have a new shift length option to extend workdays anywhere to 14 hours. Overtime causes discontent, and discontent will rise just by signing this law, but we need the extended shifts, especially here at the beginning of the game. So I want to go here, and now we have a slider. Instead of just 8 to 1800, we can now toggle that to 6 to 20. And we can I want to do that for all work sites, even the ones we're not currently using, just so I don't forget later. And so we're going to toggle that here, and all everywhere. Oops. And that way we have those all set. Did I do this one? Yes, I did. And oh, by the way, here there's the button for the emergency shift that we will never touch. Let's unpause the game again, and we want to go now until 5 a.m. So I'm going to go super fast, because at 5 a.m. the game resets to default speed every day. Our scouts are now 3 hours and 45 minutes away. And here at the beginning of day 2, we signed extended shift and extended all working hours, but we need to build our first medical tent, which I don't think we have the resources to build just yet. No, we need a little bit more wood. So I want to let them get out to work. It's now 6 a.m., so that means that they're all out working. And our scouts will be there about 9 a.m., which is pretty on point here. And the generator is shutting down, and that's fine. We want it to shut down because we... oh, I wasn't paying attention. Build medical post. Even though I used a house as a spacer here, they're the same exact size, so I'm putting a medical post in here first. It is in the heat ring, the first heat ring, range 1 heat ring of the generator, and that makes sure that that medical post stays warm. Because as you can see down here, we have 5 sick people, and so we're going to need this medical post to treat those 5 sick people. And I pulled those 10 engineers off of wood crates so they can go immediately and build the medical post instead of waiting until their shift is over. Food. The generator hums with reassuring warmth. We shouldn't take it for granted. If the generator goes down, the city dies. Be mindful of coal reserves. Now, food. There'll be no city if we starve to death. Secure a way to provide raw food and build a cookhouse to prepare meals. And we're going to do that pretty soon. Oh, as you can see, we completed the 200 coal and start the generator quest, and this is the next quest after that. Pause the game because our scouts just arrived at the Lost Expedition. Explore the area. The rest of our people made camp here, too exhausted to go on. We should escort them to the city. So the search is going to provide us with some survivors. And each point of interest that will appear on the map, there's only 2 now, but we'll get more, will show us what we can get from that point of interest by exploring it. So let's explore. And Lost Expedition, a happy reunion. We enter the camp, appearing out of the driving snow. A choir of excited voices welcomes us. Thank God you found us. We have been wandering for days until we couldn't go on any longer. Soon we'd begin to starve. Children and adults around us packed and ready to go. And we discovered 2 sites, the observatory and the sturdy shelter. So we have a choice here as well. A lot of times with our scouts, we can escort the survivors to the city. So the scouts will set out toward our city and bring the survivors quickly and safely with them. That's 3 children, 10 engineers, and 22 workers, if I remember the icons correctly. Or we can send the survivors to the city. Survivors will set out toward the city on their own. It will take longer and some of them may die. With my playstyle, I never choose the send option. I always choose the escort option. I've never really had I have lost people when I've sent them, and the way that I have played this and kind of I don't want to use the word mastered because I have nowhere near mastered this game, but the way that I've sort of focused on this game, I have plenty of time to escort everyone and still get everything scouted. So let's escort the survivors to the city. And if you remember, this took 11 hours to get here. It's only almost 11 hours. It's only going to take us less than 5.5 to get back. And the reason for that is this little icon here. The expedition travels faster following a known route to a surveyed location. So because we've already been there and we're on our way back now, it takes us half the time to get back. And so we can take advantage of that when we go to some of these other sites, which I will cover once we have come back to the city and leave again. So we're building our medical post. The next thing that I want to build is the cookhouse. That's here under food. And once the medical post is done, because we need those 10 engineers to come and work on the cookhouse next. By the way, up here across the top of the screen, we have indicators for our volume, amount of coal, wood, steel, and steam cores we have stockpiled, as well as the amount of raw food and food rations that we have stockpiled as well, I guess. All right, so as soon as that's done, and here are some alerts telling us that the generator's down, the heating is turned off, and at this point in the game, it's still only minus 20 degrees C, so we don't care. Okay, and now let's build the cookhouse, and I want to actually pause the game. I'm going to extend this road by one block, like that. And that's just to serve as an anchor point, because sometimes these buildings like to align themselves to what seems like nothing. And I want to make sure that I align it to that road, because I do want to extend this road out here soon. So let's build this cookhouse here. And this I'm going to have a few like these radial roads that go from the center straight out to the end. So we're going to go ahead and build that, but I'm going to assign 5 engineers to this medical post. And that'll put them to work here. And I also want to make sure that the cookhouse is set to the longer shift. And the 5 engineers that remain will come here and build the cookhouse, and that'll be fine. Let's get them to work. And the sawmill research just finished. So let's go into the tech tree again and research the next thing that I want to do, which is under heating. It is heaters. Heaters allows us to use heaters to heat workplaces during working hours. Each heater raises a workplace's temperature by 1 level and consumes 1 coal per hour when running. So, and I didn't kind of talk about this, but we have the 4 tech tree categories here. Heating, which has to do with the steam hub and other heat-related stuff, obviously. Exploration and industry, which is kind of just an amalgamation of 2 separate tech trees. This part here to the left focused on exploration, and this part here focused on industry, which I actually won't use at all. I won't even research the factory. I don't, the way that I play this, I don't even use the factory at all. Resources is all about gathering resources, obviously. So we're going to be able to mine more coal, collect wood using sawmills and such, and also mining steel here. And then food, health, and shelter. We have food kind of on the left here, all the way through to here. Healthcare is in the middle here, and then shelter is over here on the right. But as I said, we're going to start with heaters here, and proceed back into the world. And actually, now that we're about a day and a half in, I want to pause here and or stop this episode here and continue this in the next episode. And hopefully in the next episode we will get to the point where we get to the temperature dropping by 2 levels. That means 10 degrees C is 1 level. So that means we'll go from minus 20 to minus 40 Celsius. And then, and hopefully we will have the ability, we have all the houses built by that point, as well as some additional resources gathered and preparations made. So thank you all for joining me for this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.